Hello and welcome back to another Monster Monday, a series where I draw a creature from D&D and I talk about its lore and its history and what it's like to fight. As always, these monsters are based on your suggestions that you leave down in the comment section below, so if you do have any monsters that you'd like to see me draw and talk about, please make sure to leave those down in the comment section. Today's suggestion comes in from someone who I really hope this is the real name of, because they sound like a real-life D&D character. Today's suggestion was made by Terentius Moonborn. Excellent name. And they have suggested angels. Now, I promised someone that angels would be up as a Monster Monday before Christmas time, but unfortunately, it may even have been Terentius actually, but there just wasn't time, unfortunately. And for most of January, I've been planning a new schedule so I can get more kind of content out to you guys on a regular basis. So this one has been sitting on the prep list, but we're finally doing angels, Terentius. I hope that's okay. But this video was really tough because there's so much to cover. Angels appear in so many religions, as well as just the lore of angels, just purely in D&D, being an enormous thing. And I like to keep my videos between, anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour, something like that. So there's a lot of condensing to do. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to have to gloss over or skip entirely, but I will do my absolute best. So let's get started with today's video. So because angels appear in so many different religions, and in so many different cultures, they look massively different. There's no one sort of set description for what an angel should look like, although the sort of in Western media, in films and art and everything, they always tend to look like winged humans. I don't know about you, but that's what I think of immediately when I think of an angel. But D&D has done something very clever. Although they are depicted as winged humans in the Monster Manual, going back as far as I can remember in almost all editions of D&D, the game creators have been really clever and covered themselves for this by saying that in-game they can assume any form. Now, being a Westerner, obviously, when I think of an angel, as I say, the appearance in my head is largely influenced by Judeo-Christian legends and of those in popular Western media, so I always think of a human with wings. But I do want to make this slightly more interesting than that. I want to cover as much as I can, as much influence as I can from various different places. But even within the varying degrees of sort of Judeo-Christian faiths, which is what I'll be using to draw most of the influence and lore from in this video, angels vary wildly, even in those, in that smaller margin. According to Hebrews 1:14, angels are spirit beings that don't necessarily have to have any form, which is something that I try to keep in mind as I'm drawing this. I like the idea of making a kind of energy or spirit being maybe dressed in armor that is sort of more mundane than it. But that said, apparently in Genesis, there are two angels that appear as just completely human looking. Now, I'm not a Christian scholar, I'm not even Christian at all, to be honest, but according to scholars on the internet who have read the Bible, in Joshua 5:13-14 and Mark 16:5, angels apparently haven't, or perhaps never will, appear as women. They're always male figures, which is something that I'd never really thought of, to be honest. Honestly, I'd always pictured angels as quite feminine, but perhaps as these kind of spiritual beings, they are beyond gender or have no need for gender, and therefore are just kind of a human-ish form that is comprehensible to mortals without necessarily having to exactly be, a human with wings. They just kind of look to us as humanoid. However, flying in the face of that hypothesis, there's Matthew 28:3, where an angel is described as having the countenance that was like lightning, a face that was like lightning. There are some angels known as Ophanim that appear as wheels within wheels, enormous golden rings made of eyes or inlaid with eyes. And in Ezekiel 10:14, there's an angel with 4 heads that look like eagles, lions, and other creatures. And that's just in Christianity. Also, flying in the face of my preconceived notions of what an angel might look like in these faiths, they're almost never described with wings. Although, apparently there are 6-winged seraphim who have to use those wings to cover up all of their faces and body parts and what have you, because their skin beneath this is like a raging inferno, a ball of fire like a sun that might blind people. So when it comes to drawing angels, it turns out the world is your oyster. But I liked a lot of these ideas. I like the idea of this kind of raging inferno. I like the idea of maybe not necessarily having to have a body of flesh and skin and bone, but maybe of energy or fire or something glowing, something the radiance of these celestial beings that create angels. So where does this other notion come from? Where does the whole idea of angels being just, humans with wings come from? Well, it's really thanks to the artists of, so many different periods that really shaped our current depictions of what an angel is in that way. They're kind of relatable, human-like forms, sometimes wings, sometimes halos, surrounded by light, this kind of thing. And I think we have the 12th century to really thank for perhaps originating or at least popularizing this idea in an artistic movement that's known as the Byzantine era, Byzantine art. And this is where artists took influence from ancient Greek legends, particularly of the god Nike, the winged personification of victory, but also from the grandeur and regal stylings of the Byzantine Empire, but also those who were revered for their purity, their innocence, and their devotion to faith at the time. Those most revered, most holy people at the time were eunuchs, people who, when they are very, very young, are ritually castrated for religious reasons, so that they can perform social functions or to preserve an unbroken voice for religious songs in the Christian faith. Thankfully, this hideous practice has been stopped, but it had a very interesting effect on people, and they were highly venerated for these effects. These people were often said to, quote, lack full masculine musculature, body hair, and beards, according to Dr. Amelia Brown. And this kind of brings up this sort of androgynous, slightly perhaps feminine-looking, but consistently male angels in the Christian faith. And this was brought to art in this sort of Byzantine period, and these themes continued through the medieval, the Renaissance, Baroque, the neoclassical, all of these many artistic movements, and eventually impacted our modern understanding, and indeed influenced their appearance in D&D. Now, although I like this kind of energy or light form for the being underneath the armor, I feel like angels also need some cool weapons, some very, epic gear. They need heavy armor. Particularly, I'm looking at Guido René's 17th century painting of Archangel Michael, because a lot of these angels, in particular Archangel Michael and Gabriel, are often depicted in kind of Roman centurion armor, heavy armor. They're ready for battle, and that's because angels, in particular these two, fought in a war in heaven in the book of Revelation and defeated Satan. These creatures need to be battle hardy. So I really wanted to impress upon them this sense of being a veteran, being ready for war, being aggressive and competent in battle as well. But I did want to just cover one thing before I move on. I mentioned there Archangel Michael, and I've always kind of wondered, despite what I think that means, what an archangel is as opposed to a regular angel. Because that sounds to me, from, just hearing the word archangel, it's just like angel plus, boss angel. And it does actually kind of mean that. Translating from the Greek, arch literally means chief or the original. And angel, incidentally, literally means messenger in Greek. And this might also tie back to Hermes and Greek legends, just like Nike influenced the idea of an angel with this kind of suit of armor. The feathered bird wings that we see on angels might be a reference to Hermes, the messenger of the Greek gods, who had winged sandals that allowed him to fly. But I think I've talked enough about angels in mythology and religions for now. There's a lot more to cover, but short of going on a tirade and embarking on a thesis outlining the history of angels, you didn't come here to learn about religion, you came here to learn about D&D. So let's talk about that. Angels in D&D are sometimes known as Asimon, A-A-S-I-M-O-N. Makes me wonder if there was someone in the development team on D&D who had a bit of a slacker. And at a board meeting, when someone was asked, what are you working on, Simon? So I had to make it up on the spot and go, Asimon. Asimon, I'm working on the Asimon. And then had to basically explain that they were angels. But wild, definitely not true speculation aside, referring to angels as Asimon is the reason why we have the playable plane-touched creatures, the Azimar, the offspring of angels, the descendants of angels, those influenced by members of the divine turned mortal in the world of D&D called the Azimar. Essentially what demons are to tieflings, angels are to the Azimar. Now, angels joined the many worlds of D&D in 1982's Dragon Magazine issue number 63, where they were called Devas or Divas. And rather than meaning that just a large amount of winged Mariah Careys were added to the game, the word Deva in this sense originates from the Sanskrit word meaning shining one or god. Now, angels in D&D are essentially celestial kind of spirit robots created for a singular purpose by a benevolent god. And they act as a messenger, as their name would suggest, or as a destroyer. And both of these options are only used in the most dire of circumstances by any of the D&D gods. The Monster Manual tells us that only a good aligned god, but any good aligned god in D&D can create an angel. Even the chaotic, but angels of all kinds, no matter who creates them, save for fallen angels, are lawful good in alignment. Because again, they're robots, they have to do exactly what they're told, and their god is their law. They don't feel joy, love, hate, jealousy, anything, except for a desire, or perhaps even a compulsion, to fulfill their divine programming, whatever that may be. And this can often make them seem really aloof and cold as we project our human emotions, our humanity onto them. We anthropomorphize them because they look so human. We expect them to behave like one. But sadly, they are utterly incapable of feeling. They only do as they were originally commanded. But this doesn't make them simple-minded by any means. The lowest intelligence score of any angel so far is 17, and the highest is 25. So they can hold their own with even the smartest wizard or beyond. That being said, because they are bound to their instructions, to their divine programming, they are not immune to being tricked into performing acts that are counter to these orders and ideals. They lack the ability to read between the lines of a god's request. Just like the creation and orders given to a golem that I mentioned in my Flesh Golem video, these creatures are unable to pick apart the subtle nuances of implication and meaning that can sometimes find themselves in the wording of an order, and just kind of like the cruel, ironic wishes that you can sometimes get from a wish spell or from a genie. An angel might find themselves challenged with a task that sees them fall from their god's favour. Now, being a good god, they won't kill these creatures, they won't erase them from existence because they do have minds, they are living. Not at this point, but instead they will completely abandon them, cut them off. Angels that are cut off in this way are called fallen, and they often turn their frustrations into a semblance of anger. Being angeless, timeless, immortal beings, they may develop an ability to understand emotion, and that which is most prevalent will be sadness, regret, anger. They may go insane. They may try and enact the purest and most logical, emotionless version of their programming to potentially disastrous effect. I'm reminded of Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, a potentially 3-law system that if artificial intelligence like an angel was created, that if these laws were programmed into an artificial intelligence upon its creation, that perhaps it would avoid the kind of Terminator-style apocalypse that we all dread from artificial intelligence. The laws that Asimov created were that a robot, or in this case angel, may not injure a human, or through inaction allow a human to come to harm. The second one is that a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, unless such orders would conflict with the first law. And the third one being that a robot must protect its own existence, as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Given this program to an angel, what does that mean? What does that mean for this creature? A robot may not injure a human. What is injury? Is that surgery? Where does cutting someone open for life-saving surgery end and injury begin? They cannot allow humans to come to harm. So what constitutes harm? Bullying? Depression? Is it purely physical, in which case we ignore a lot of the emotional abuse in the world? What is human? Or in this case, a living, playable creature in D&D. An angel would need to know if something is human once it's conceived, or perhaps once it's born. Maybe even before that, the cells that combine to make up a creature. Are they human? In which case, constantly we shed skin cells all the time. Are we losing bits of our humanity at all times? Would an angel constantly be trying to glue people back together? When does a human definitively die? Is it brain death, when all of the organs stop failing? Is humanity in the body? In which case, a necromancer, by raising the dead and reanimating the bones, is doing this God's will, and an angel should follow suit to resurrect and keep humans alive, to do them no harm. Perhaps humanity is in the mind or the soul, in which case one could argue that an angel might try and prevent a lich from dying. might even protect a phylactery because it contains a soul or a mind, and that is considered just as human as anything else. So although given, obviously, probably much more complicated orders than that by their deity, much more well thought through concepts than the laws of robotics, you can see how an angel might misconstrue or be deceived into becoming a fallen angel by trying desperately to follow their programming, but having that programming twisted by an outside force, convincing them that perhaps, liches are life, or something to that extent. It's possible that given a lengthy or open enough goal, angels will develop more of a personality over time. As I've said, they don't age, they don't eat or sleep, so they could have an eternity to develop from their initial sort of factory default settings to something more complicated. We're told that some shapeshift and hide among different species successfully, only aiding when needed. At the moment in the core books, I believe we only have 3 angels, 3 types of angels in D&D. The sort of weakest and most frequently occurring, the most populous among the angels, is still known as the Deva, and they're the most likely to appear to humans to do this kind of shape-shifting and hiding amongst the populace kind of thing, performing good deeds and so on and so forth. They often appear as humanoid or even as a gentle animal, but occasionally they'll cast off this guise, wherein the Deva is described in the monster manual as a beautiful humanoid-like creature with silvery skin. Its hair and eyes gleam with an unearthly luster, and large feathery wings unfurl from its shoulder blades. These weakest among the angels are about 6 to 7 feet tall, and are absolutely horrifying in combat at challenge rating 10. Their silvery skin grants them a natural 17 armor class. They can fly 90 feet around or walk at 30 feet, and your DM will roll 16d8 plus 64 for their health. They have plus 4 strength, plus 4 dex and constitution. At 17 they have plus 3 intelligence, but then plus 5 in wisdom and charisma. They're resistant to non-magical weapons as well as radiant damage, and are completely immune to being charmed, exhausted or frightened. Naturally exuding light, they have 120-foot dark vision, know all languages, and are telepathic. The angel's weapons are magical in nature, so all of his attacks count as magical, and any weapon attack that the angel deals an extra 48 radiant damage. Devas can detect evil and good whenever they want to, but can also cast Commune or Raise Dead. They're resistant to magic, granting them advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and they can make 2 horrifying melee attacks per round, smashing you with their mace twice, each time dealing 1d6 plus 4 bludgeoning damage, plus obviously the 48 radiant damage. They can also change their shape however they please, and 3 times a day they can cast Healing Touch, curing diseases, poisons and other ailments, and healing someone for 48 plus 2 hit points. This also removes curses, so make friends with angels if you can. It might be the one really good reason to go lawful good. Planetars are the kind of mid-level angels, and I think they're more of our kind of archangels, less messengers, more, oh my god, this thing is coming at me with a giant magical greatsword. Rather than a medium humanoid type thing, they are large in size, meaning that they can tower over you anywhere from 8 to 16 feet in height. They are known as the weapons of the gods, and their radiant eyes see through every deception. These creatures act like they're wearing a pretty decent set of plate armor with an AC of 19. Your DM is rolling 16d10s rather than d8s this time for their health, and adding a monstrous number of numbers. They can fly 120 feet or run 40 feet per round, and in addition to all the things that make a Deva terrifying, the Planetar at challenge rating 16 has massively increased stats. Its intelligence, being its lowest stat, is a 19 at plus 4. Its dexterity, shortly afterwards, is a 20 at plus 5. And everything else is above 20. Radiant damage that they deal from attacks is increased to 5d8. Their divine awareness ability means that they passively always know if they hear lies. They lose their ability to change their shape, but luckily can turn themselves invisible whenever they want to at any given time. Because when a Planetar is summoned, they don't want to look like anyone else. They want to scare the absolute flumps out of you. So 3 times a day they can cast Blade Barrier, Dispel Evil and Good, Flame Strike and Raise Dead. They can also control the weather, or go full on biblical, and cast Insect Plague. They can do that same Healing Touch ability once more than the Deva can per day, and with much greater healing. And you'll be glad to hear if you're fighting one of these things, they don't lose their multi-attack, and instead they're slamming you with a Greatsword, which is at a plus 12 to hit, and deals 4d6 plus 7 damage. before the radiant explosion hits you. Finally, at a challenge rating 21, the Solar is a truthfully awful thing to ever anger. According to the Monster Manual, a Solar is godlike in its glory and power, and I definitely agree. In addition to everything that a Planetar has going for it, Solars are immune to necrotic and poison damage, can fly at 150 feet, your DM is now rolling so many d10s that it's just silly and adding even more numbers to it, and has a 21 AC. When it hits you with a weapon attack, its angelic weapon causes extra radiant damage, the likes of which have not been seen since the Chernobyl disaster, and 3 times a day, it can just resurrect someone. If the Solar gets bored of smiting you itself, it can let go of its greatsword, which will then attack by its side as a companion. So luckily, it can then do the rest of its horrifying stuff, like using its slaying longbow, which deals 2d8 plus 6 piercing damage, and if a creature that's hit by that has fewer than 100 hit points, they just die. They just straight up die. You can make a Constitution saving throw, but if you fail, no life or death saving throws, it just full on kills you. In previous editions, this was because it had a quiver of slaying arrows, and slaying arrows in other editions did various different things, but things like, it would pull out an arrow and it would automatically be, an arrow of dragon slaying, which would do a monstrous amount of more damage to dragons specifically, but would just be a fairly normal arrow to someone else. And I like this idea because it feels like a Solar literally has the bullet with your name on it in its quiver and decides to pick that one before it hits you with it. I feel like if you were making the Angel of Death, this is what you would make. Also, because this creature is so powerful, it now gets legendary actions, 3 of which that it can use at the end of another creature's turn, regaining all of those at the beginning of its own turn. With these 3 actions, it can either teleport magically, along with any equipment it's wearing or carrying, up to 120 feet, as long as it can see where it's going. It can cause someone to randomly, spontaneously combust, causing them to take 46 fire damage and 46 radiant damage, along with anybody else that's standing within 10 feet of it. Or it can spend all 3 of its legendary actions to cast Blinding Gaze, wherein this absolute monster of a creature decides that it's annoyed with you peons getting your greasy eyes all over its beautiful clothes, and therefore removes your ability to see permanently, unless you have a lesser restoration spell that can give you your eyes back, because this thing steals eyes at the end of your own turn. One really interesting thing to do as a DM that's been so angry that they have summoned a Solar to kill your players is to permanently blind someone and then use the greatsword to attack a creature from one side so that they think that the Solar is on one side of them, whereas the actual Solar is on the other side of them, setting them on fire. If the DM is feeling particularly vindictive, they could torture someone for literally eons by resurrecting someone that the Solar then kills, only to then set them on fire again and continuously blind them, continuing to resurrect them and then slay them for all eternity. Players will be happy to hear that according to Gary Gygax, there are supposedly only supposed to be 24 Solars in the entirety of existence, and summoning one causes a great deal of strain for any god who creates it. So if an angel is guarding something that you and your party desperately want, just leave it alone. Is it worth it? It might be a Solar that you're fighting, in which case I would just leave. It's there for a good reason. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I definitely enjoyed drawing it. I definitely enjoyed studying angels. They are really cool creatures to put in any campaign, despite the fact that they are hideously powerful. If you've had encounters with angels in your campaigns, please make sure to leave those in the comment section below. I love hearing your campaign stories. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave it a little thumbs up, a little like down below. Perhaps favourite this video so you can refer back to it when you need to, and share it with your friends who might be just about to tackle a Solar. We're a small channel, so anything you can do like that really does help us to grow, helps us to get noticed, and will help me to make consistent, high quality videos. So thank you very much for your help. If you want to support me in a more personal way, I'd urge you to head over to my Patreon page, where backers get digital copies of all of my Monster Monday drawings that I do each month, including this one if you particularly loved it and you'd like a copy for yourself. It's a really good way of getting more out of the channel and helping me to make these videos. So thank you very much if you go over to Patreon and check that out. Otherwise, if you want to get more out of the channel, then I have a Facebook, an Instagram, and a Twitter, where I post D&D related things, pictures of my dogs, and things that I'm drawing and painting at the moment. So if you want to check those out, there are links in the description. Otherwise, I hope you stay on the right side of your D&D gods. And until next time, happy monster hunting.